because for an FE user, it might not even necessarily be the problem itself and just coming to some sort of understanding between two people, but it might be how you present yourself to the other person during that process, and making sure that you present yourself as like respectable and, I don't know, like polite or those sorts of things.
Just so weird. It's like FI wants to make the other one feel like they're being heard because that's just the FI's value, but an FE user might want the other person to feel like they're being heard because it's just like harmonizing. It could manifest in the exact same behavior and same result, but the intentions are completely different.
Right. And I think the process is different. I think just as TE kind of seeks like a logical route that is the most efficient and doesn't really think about the logical system in its entirety, just kind of like wants to think of like the input and then the output and just go along that sense. I think FE is kind of the same thing for ethics and conveying their ethics to other people. So they're like, okay, this is just the most efficient, right, and maybe effective route for me to convey to you that, like, yes, I understand you, but I think the FI user wants the other person to go through the same process internally that they are going through and kind of actually really understand where they're coming from. And so the FE might just kind of do this very efficient thing, thinking like, oh, but that's effective. I'm just saying this thing, or like I'm comforting them physically, or I'm doing this thing that is trying to convey that I understand them. But the FI user is like, no, I want you to go dive deep with me into my process and feel all the things that I'm feeling.
This makes so much sense. I need drink to that. I'm drinking that.
And then I would say conversely, the way the FE user, at least the way that I imagine the FE user might see it, is that they might think that the FI user is maybe being difficult, and since they are kind of, trying to convey in the most effective way how they feel, and then the FI user is like, no, well, that's not necessarily what I want. I want you to go into and sit with us in this difficult emotion with me, right? Until you sort of understand. And they might see that as disharmony and like why are you trying to, I'm doing something positive here and you're trying to disrupt it by doing something negative and not efficient. What are you doing?
Do you see how that's a perfect analogy? It's a perfect parallel to TI and TE, where TI is like, oh no, I don't want to I don't just want to solve this formula. You have to go through the whole process of why mathematics works. Why can't you go through the whole process of why this whole thing works? And then TE, so if FE thinks that the FI is being disharmonious, TE is thinking for TI that you're being inefficient.
Right, yeah.
It's a perfect parallel. It makes me so happy when I find perfect parallels.
Yeah, I think maybe another thing with, okay, I'm not sure if I have a lot of data to talk about in terms of fighting with FE users. So I don't know how robust my observations are, but I think one thing that I've noticed is that since, FE users are all about being effective, that maybe when they're upset, they might just kind of block out the other person for a while until they kind of recover. And then once they recover, they'll just act like nothing happened. And that's sort of the indication to them, oh, yes, I'm okay with everything again. We can be okay. But to the FI user, that just sort of seems like you were just taking a shortcut in terms of actually going into the healing process or going into the deep understanding of why we're upset, not just that we were upset, but all the intricacies of why we're upset. And so that can feel, I don't know, that's another way where there might be a clash with FE and FI styles.
That's a huge clash. Oh my gosh, I feel like you can talk about this so calmly because you're not an FI dom, but that's just literally my most biggest pet peeve ever in the world. FE users are just thinking oh, it's over now. I'm no, but you apologize. I'm like, yeah, but you don't even know why you apologize. Like, how could this be okay to anyone? But with the TETI analogy, now I kind of get it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, but I hate it so much. I love FE users, man. Like, I love everyone. Like, FE users are great, but like, I don't think I could ever be in a relationship with an FE user again, just because if the fight is really bad and they gloss over it in such a way, I just can't. Yeah, if it's a casual relationship, I could maybe understand, but if it was like a serious romantic relationship, it just, I don't think I could ever get over it again.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think I really enjoy FE users in terms of friendship, especially just kind of trying to get into what TI actually is. That's always like very intriguing and just, I don't know. I enjoy trying to figure out their TI. But yeah, I still stand by that sort of model of relationship compatibility, that probably FI users are more compatible with FI users and FE users are more compatible with FE users. Although I'm sure if, there is an FI-FE relationship, it could work, but it would take a lot of growth on both people's parts and a lot more understanding and really, yeah, just like understanding of exactly what the other person wants. And so the FI user might have to go and act in an FE way, and the FE user might have to go and act in an FI way so that they can kind of reach some sort of, yeah, equilibrium or just meet each other's needs in terms of dealing with that conflict. So I wouldn't say it's impossible, but it's probably just a lot easier if you have a more kind of intuitive understanding of what the other person wants in terms of resolving a conflict.
Okay, my experience with FE users, I agree with you, obviously, that everyone can be with everyone. But my experience with FE users is that I just can't, because like at some point it is understanding. It is like people have to understand each other. But what's gonna happen when FI and FE understand each other? FI is gonna be like, oh, I understand how FE works. I'll just let it go. So every time, because my mom is FE and my ex-boyfriend is FE. So what I've learned is that there's just my understanding results in me saying, okay, I will just let it go. Because they by default let it go if they're thinking the conflict is over. It's over. I just have to let it go or be a neg. Like, that's it. I'm like, that's the most unsatisfying thing ever. Like, I don't know how they would act if they understand me. I guess just keep asking why you feel upset and I'll just keep explaining, but it's just never happened.
Yeah. I mean, just trying to think of trying to understand like a TI user, that definitely would be a lot of work. I don't know. Yeah, that's actually interesting that the introverted process maybe, at least in terms of judging, the introverted judging processes, so TI and FI maybe can kind of, I don't know, just like affect, FE and or TE and FE respectively, right? Just by like kind of ignoring the middle process and like jumping right to like what's effective, but trying to kind of go from something that is just effective and maybe in that sense a little bit more like superficial or just kind of skimming the surface and trying to like develop that depth underneath it. Yeah, that's probably a more difficult task.
Okay, yeah, just to round this out, I guess I'll add like another thing. When I was arguing with my previously my ENTJ, it was like scream off each other's heads about like what is right and what's wrong. That was like so hurtful but so satisfying in the end, because I get it. I'm like, this, I believe this, and he's like, I believe this, even though he has repressed FI, but we're stressed out, so it comes out. And I don't know, like, it might never be solved. You might have to, like, understand. I might have to be like, okay, you believe this, and he might have to be like, okay, you believe this. But that's kind of an understanding. With the ENTP, our arguments were kind of like him being all of a sudden, okay, there is no fire. Like, yeah, okay, like, sorry. I'm like, wait, why are you sorry? It's like, blank. And he would just make me feel better, or try to make me feel better. And I would be like, why are you trying to make me feel better? And he would try to make me feel better more. And eventually I just have to let it go, or it just never ends. So that requires a different understanding than just accepting that the other person believes something else. That's like accepting the other person operates under an entirely different modality. That was really difficult. Yeah. So that's my 2 cents.